Okay. So as a bookkeeper, you want to add value. In this episode, we're going to share with you how you can understand what your clients are feeling right now and how you can help them feel more confident for the future.
Welcome to the Bookkeepers Podcast live, sponsored by Xero. So today we're going to be discussing a large study that has been created by Dext, by Iris, and they've done a study across 500 small to medium-sized businesses based in the UK, and they've asked them lots of questions so that we can understand exactly how they are feeling about the current state of the economy, but also their business, emotionally how they're feeling, but also what impact that is having on the growth, or they feel there's no growth at the moment.
Yeah, it was really hard reading, actually. I think it was, I mean, in a nutshell, felt like a pretty negative space that small business owners are in right now. But I think that means that there's a huge opportunity for bookkeepers, and we wanted to share these clients because we want to turn that into an opportunity.
Yeah, I think bookkeepers struggle to have like real deep conversations with their clients. We speak about this all the time, how we think that the business owners that we're serving are somehow in a better position than us, and they don't necessarily need our input. But this report shares that there is so much opportunity for us to help our current clients to navigate the next few years, but also to be the person that spots trends, spots opportunities for them, and also threats that they need to be aware of. And the numbers are telling us these things, but there was a lot in this report about how many small businesses don't have access to those numbers.
No, it was quite surprising, actually, wasn't it? And I guess that's the thing, like, business owners don't start their business hoping to be dealing with the data. And that's all right when things are going well, but when it's not an easy time, and as we'll learn from this report, a lot of business owners are saying, like, the economy is making it very difficult for them in business. They are losing sight of the reason that they went into business in the first place. And they talk about the idea of this admin tax, the additional cost for them as business owners of financial admin, which just seems to be creating more and more pressure right now.
It never stops. It just keeps continuing. And then when anything happens with regards to government, HMRC, there's extra burden on them. They don't know how to navigate it, but also they feel that they need to be cutting back on costs. So sometimes they feel like, well, I'll bring this in-house. I'll do this myself. Surely if I can save money. And this talks about this a lot, how lots of people are going into that mindset of like scaling back, reducing. Maybe they'll feel safer if they're smaller, but actually it's the fact that they're losing out on opportunities, and actually they need to be pushing through and growing through this to secure their futures.
Oh my gosh, it just gets me thinking about like how we're living in this really technical time. There's loads of automations, like we see it in our industry as well. Loads of things are changing. There are lots of opportunities to leverage new tools to like make us better. And I think sometimes we think, well, I'm just going to replace that person or that system with that tool or that piece of software. But actually what we need to do is rework out what the whole system even needs to be. But I think that small business owners are so focused on how do I cut back that they're just removing parts rather than thinking, okay, like maybe the strategy here changes. And this report starts with a real focus in on the economy, doesn't it?
Yeah, they say that 54% of the 500 respondents said that today's climate is even more unpredictable than COVID. They seem to think that when we were going through COVID, which obviously was a very difficult time, but there was lots of opportunity there for bounce back loans and support and grants, and maybe you had business interruption insurance. So you had avenues to go and get access to something and some help. Also, everybody was feeling the same. So we all went through it together, and we knew that there would be an end in sight. It would come to an end. But at the moment, we're in such turbulent times, and people cannot see how this is going to play out and if it will ever end.
No, there's no like magic fix or just do this thing, follow this process and you'll get your loan or whatever. Like you've now got to figure this out on your own, and you are on your own completely working it out.
You are. And what we found interesting, like with the people that we get to speak with, you know, we've got some really great friends who are incredible entrepreneurs and who you'd see as being very successful. And the reason that they're successful is that they look to the future, they scenario plan, and lots of them are talking about leaving the UK, which is really sad.
Yeah, because this report fits within like the UK environment where, I mean, globally costs are rising right now. Inflation is much higher. We're also suffering from tariffs. Like, I think about the small business owners we know who sell products, and they are really at the mercy of like the timber price. Like, something like that could change, and it instantly changes how, like, their costs, their profit margins just overnight, and they've got to either deal with it or change their pricing, reduce their profit, or find another supplier, just like that.
And when you're not a massive business, you don't necessarily have the access to financial funding or funds that you might have, you know, big, large bank accounts that you can like utilize your savings from the past. You know, you may have been running a business for years and years and years, so you've got some reserves. But these smaller business owners, especially the people that are going to be affected by MTD for IT, there's new financial burden on them, and they've not even been running maybe their business for long, or they have not automated their business yet. And this just feels like a really massive task.
Yeah, so they're facing things like increased costs, new tariffs that hadn't existed before, inflation, unpredictability. The entrepreneurs you were speaking about who were saying, "Do you know what, I think I'm just going to leave the UK," they're thinking about what tax is doing right now and uncertainty. And it is just this massive sort of environment we're trying to work our way through it. And people in this report are saying, you know, they've lost their spark. People are thinking like, one more hit here and I don't want to do this anymore.
No, that's really sad.
It really sad.
And if that's like such a large section of the small business, you know, environment, then that's, you know, how do we help people and how do we get past this?
So the financial admin, you described that as another cost, and you were talking about sort of MTD, IT being this additional cost that new sole traders might, or any sole traders might not be prepared for or thinking about. Is created this additional activity that is now needed to be covered in their business, whether that's by them, and therefore the cost to them is their time, and then the return on their time, which won't be now used for selling a product or a service, or the cost of, or the investment, which I'd much rather call it an investment here, but they will see it as a cost, the cost of bringing in a bookkeeper who can support them with that new finance admin, that finance tax.
Yeah, and I think it was really interesting what you said about the cost to them losing their time. I think there's another part of that. They lose their spark, they lose their creativity. So the opportunities for them to have the headspace to be, you know, a visionary in their business, they become very much in the business and they can't see the opportunities for the trees because they're so stuck doing the admin.
Yeah.
Sabi Gil, who is the CEO of Dext, he made a quote about the whole thing, and it's quite deep, really. So he says, "We're past resilience. These businesses are stuck in survival mode, and too many are close to giving up. Without urgent support, we risk losing a generation of entrepreneurs and the backbone of the UK economy, not just to economic pressure, but to exhaustion."
It's really sad, isn't it?
It's quite hard to hear.
And I think it sums up. So the survey said that 47% of today's leaders have said they're questioning whether their dream is actually worth it. And that he's just summing that up, really. And 36% of people are saying they've lost sight of why they started their business in the first place. You know, if you've got all of those additional costs impacting your profit margins, the time, we know what it takes, the hours that we put into running a business. You don't start at 9, finish at 5. Like, you live and breathe everything about your business. Every moment you're thinking, what's the opportunity? How do I do this? What am I not doing? Where do I leverage? Who should I speak to? Like, what could I learn in this situation? And they are probably thinking, actually, right now, given what I'm taking out of my business, I might be better off just to go and get a job.
Yeah. And it's really sad when you've put your life, and you would have sacrificed so much to get to this point, to then be thinking, is it worth it, is really, really sad. I think it's a lack of confidence, a lack of foresight. And it said in the report about how 29% of the leaders conducted in the scenario are planning for the event of a recession, but only 29%.
Only 29% of people have made any kind of scenario planning for a recession. That's crazy.
But it's because they don't even know where they are now.
No.
They don't know where they are now, so it's really hard to forecast forward, create a scenario. They don't even know what does that look like?
Yeah.
What does creating a forecast look like? And everything is so uncertain. So, that's where a bookkeeper could come in and sit down and facilitate it. Let's have a think, like, I like to think about what's best case scenario and what's worst case scenario. Or when I'm doing a forecast, I always like to think, okay, so if I go worst case on sales, what's coming in, and like worst case on expenses, let's see, because I think if it got bad and you make a plan for it, then it makes you feel like, okay,
this is what
I've got it sorted. It's having a plan.
To know do you know what? I was just thinking about how it's like the unknown unknown. So COVID, I mean, how many of us were just completely like, I don't know, the rug was pulled out from under us because whatever scenario planning, however good we are as like bookkeepers and accountants, who could have ever known that everything was just going to shut down?
And back in that time as well, I remember vividly those people that had recently just moved from being sole trader to becoming incorporated. So then they were a director and they didn't have a salary. And there was all these directors of businesses that weren't supported. And that changed everything for us as advisors as to whether we tell people to incorporate their business or not, because we'd never seen that scenario play out. And so we've got these business owners that have lived through that. So of course they're going to be more cautious than they were 10 years ago.
But they're also potentially thinking, well, I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm just going to go and do the best I can. But I think, like, as bookkeepers and accountants, we need to kind of read the room and be like, okay, well, we didn't expect to be working with these particular tariffs.
No.
But what if that gets worse? Or what if this other country brings tariffs in? It's like looking at your sort of risk areas in your business. And I think this is one of the ways that we can start to help.
I mean, it's not just small businesses, though. It's not like, these are not going to be your clients. But, there's been cash flow issues hitting bigger businesses like Thames Water, Superdry, and Jaguar Land Rover. Like, big players are struggling. If they're struggling with their massive finance departments, with management accountants in-house, this is going to be a effect down.
With like credit scores, like they will have access to finance that a small new business might not have. So I think the way that the small businesses are reacting based on this report is they're feeling afraid, they're really lacking confidence, they don't have plans in the first place, and that was maybe okay when things were all right. And I think like some of the businesses that might have been interviewed here actually started their business during COVID times and potentially built it for a recession economy. Like they might have not started their business in the way, like in a boom time. So they don't necessarily have a forecast because they probably thought this is like the worst it was going to be anyway.
They mostly like took the opportunity as well. You hear lots of people that have built businesses in a recession, and the model they build is very different and it's very robust, and they also like ride the wave. So there was something in here, I'm trying to find it now, about the ages of people and their confidence in like being able to succeed in another recession.
I know, it was like younger people were less confident. No, younger people were more confident.
Yes, they were like 54% confident that they would be able to navigate another recession, but someone over 45.
So it says only 8% of SMB leaders aged 45 and above claimed that they were confident in navigating a potential recession.
Right.
Whereas their younger compatriots
fancy,
reported much higher confidence at 51%. And I'm like, why is that? Is it because they started their business when they were in a recession time?
Because we've had lots of those.
And they're kind of used to the uncertainty and maybe like more agile. And, when we're younger, we don't have the same sort of expectations of this is the way we've always done it, because I don't like the word hustling, but you're kind of like more reactive, ready to change direction. Like you see an opportunity and you're like, I could do that. Maybe I'll do that. And I think lots of businesses need to start thinking like that. But if you are stuck with a business model to work for a long time,
is it the lack to so that agility is really important, because they're ready and they're building their business with the fact that they know that they might have to change things, move things around, and like be reactive to the environment and proactive. But whereas somebody that built their business a longer time ago, people they were watching building businesses were building businesses in the same way.
Yeah.
And they have copied something and they're like, oh no, I don't know how to change it.
Well, think about the opportunity of AI right now and the amount of people we know who are building AI businesses. Or, you know, we're building Hey Monica. It's a piece of software that uses AI. Like if we had stuck to the way that we wanted to solve problems like in the past, we would have built a course that gave people work experience.
And we started doing that.
That was what we thought. This is what we know. We'll go out, we'll see if we can build a course. But no, actually, because of a conversation with somebody, we can say, oh, actually, maybe AI could help us with that. Okay, let's go for it. And I think that it's how you think about opportunity and whether it's for you or not for you, potentially.
Yeah. I mean, that's why it upsets me a little bit, the age 45, because I'm 44.
Oh, Jo, and you're going to suddenly like have
all of a sudden,
nothing exciting.
I think we are quite adaptable. I think it's, like you say, it's a mindset piece as well. So
I think it's a growth mindset versus fixed mindset.
100%.
Yeah. So lots of businesses, because they feel that they lack confidence, and then, you know, it's not just the small businesses, the big businesses that struggle with cash flow as well. They're trying to cut back. They're trying to think, how do I do the thing I've been doing with a smaller cost base? But the big problem with that,
you're going to go economist on me now, aren't you?
Well, I am going to go economist.
This is a geek. You love to geek out.
Yeah. I want to geek out, because what is going to happen, we know is happening because that's what the report is saying. People are then so focused on how do I like reduce the size of my cost base that they then don't have availability to invest in the things that are the reason that, you know, the dream, the new office that they wanted to open, or the new project, or the thing they wanted to invest in. So this is a bigger problem. It's not just about the small business owner fulfilling their dreams. And, you know, I say that in a like this whimsical idea of how wonderful it is to be a business owner. Like, it's so hard. But when they are not investing, that has a wider impact. So they call it the multiplier effect, that you invest money, that then employs people, creates jobs, creates spending in an economy. And then that investment creates jobs. And then the people who have jobs spend money. And then there's this effect where it's not just about the £1 million you've invested somewhere being the boost. It's like the £1 million several times over.
Yeah. And this is where bookkeepers get it wrong with their marketing, is that they set themselves out to be a cost. They don't talk about the return on investment of having an amazing bookkeeper by your side, spotting the opportunities for you, giving you the KPIs that you need to be able to see when there's something risky coming up, and can save you. I mean, we hear it, you know, we spoke to Steph in one of our podcasts about how she saved by what she did. She saved 40 jobs.
I know.
40 jobs in a business.
It's not just like that. She's helped that company to have whatever the cost of those 40 jobs were. She's created a situation where those 40 people continue to pay for the services that they have and
their mortgages.
Yeah. Or to like go on, like do stuff this summer holidays with their kids because they've got more money in the bank. And then that creates jobs and employment. And it just continues in this really great circle.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're not very good at recognizing when what we've done has made an impact. We don't document it. We just go, all right, that's done, move on. We also don't look for, I know I've done this, I would do the job and then quietly go away and think, right, what's next? And not think about asking for feedback, testimonials. And I'd be embarrassed to kind of like put my hand up and say, I think I impacted that decision and I've made a difference.
I think this is like, there's a whole other conversation here around pricing for value, isn't there? This is where bookkeepers and accountants really impact the success of the business. So at the beginning of this podcast, we said, you know, this is how you can, if you add value, you can earn more money because you're a more valuable bookkeeper. But you're earning more money and being a more valuable bookkeeper and being paid more because you're helping the client to earn more money. Like there's definitely a disconnect. If you're out there charging an hourly rate, there's a disconnect between how you are measuring units of your time and what the client is actually doing. If you can do the scenario plan, if you can help them to leverage their time or earn more per head count, you're going to make an impact financially for that business.
Yeah. It says in this report as well that 81% of respondents told us they would finally have the time to focus on their personal health and happiness if the admin wasn't holding them back. 81%.
Oh my gosh. I mean, we know what it's like to be a small business owner and find it really hard to prioritize yourself.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'd really thought about, I don't know. I feel like it's hard when you're juggling kids and family and business and, you know, aging parents and all of that kind of stuff. But this isn't just like in our little bubble here. This is like everyone. 81% of everyone out there.
Yeah, are feeling that and are struggling with that. And there was somewhere in the report as well that was saying about how only like 32%, I believe it was, that actually or haven't got support from external accountant or bookkeeper.
Yeah.
So there's such an opportunity for education around why small businesses need this support, and what the return on investment is when you have somebody in your pocket looking at these numbers, holding you accountable, creating. So maybe you don't maybe you've never created a forecast before, maybe you're not sure, but talk to them. What do you think your sales are going to be next month? What do you think they're going to be the month after? And just start the conversation and talking about this, maybe they've got a customer that is bringing in more than 20% of their turnover. There's a risk there. What can we do to mitigate the risk? Something that we did in our business, we had the opportunity to work with somebody that was going to have that kind of impact on our fees. And we had to make a decision, do we say no to them and say that's too risky to have someone with that kind of big chunk? Because if we lose them, you get used to the money, right?
Yeah.
You get used to the income. So what we decided, we say yes, but that money was going to be put aside and not touched, so that we still had the benefit of them, but we didn't get used to that money. And then if they left, that wasn't risky. So but people don't think about that because they don't realise that they have a customer that's such a high percentage of their sales.
No, well, early on in the report, it says like more than 40% of business owners are using spreadsheets. And these aren't the smallest businesses here.
No.
Like this is a wide range of SMBs. So if people are using spreadsheets to manage all of their finances, we know how limited the information they have is, because that's relying on somebody first of all getting it correct.
Yeah.
Someone who sits there and types all of their numbers into a spreadsheet, really?
But you've got to think that then there's going to be still a lot of people still using desktop software that might not have a bank feed. So they're still typing. So that's like worse. I mean, didn't mention they're the people that don't even use spreadsheets.
No, that's true. I've seen some of those. It makes me sad. Oh no. So let's see, how can bookkeepers and accountants actually bridge this gap? Because I think it's like a confidence gap. You don't know what situation you're really operating in. It feels bad. The economy feels bad. It feels like lots is against you. You're thinking about giving up as a business owner. There's a lack of confidence about the future. Now, the starting point is to understand actually where you are, and help your client let your client understand where the client is right now and how things are moving. But then to sort of support them to build their confidence with scenario planning and things like that. So there are sort of 4 steps that Dext have set out that you can be following to support with this. And the first one is to create more accurate financial models and forecasts with real-time data. And I think that this really means before you can even do that, you need to have good accounting data. So we need to be going back to real-time, cloud-based accounting software with live bank feeds, somebody reconciling the accounts daily.
Yeah. In this kind of time, we can't be, we can't just say, oh, we'll make, we're sticking to the compliance rules. We are submitting our year-end accounts. Our corporation tax is done, and think you're safe. That is not that would have been fine. And I think this is where maybe that older generation, are struggling with, is that what used to be okay with running a business is not the same anymore. You need to get really up to date, accurate, daily. I mean, I speak to, I've said this, I've upset people before because I say if you're offering quarterly bookkeeping for that, you're not a bookkeeper. Like I think bookkeeping is minimum weekly, and with the aim for daily. Now, obviously, that costs a client more, but not necessarily a lot more. And they should be seeing the benefit and being able to say in real time, I can make this decision quicker. This is what this is. They don't have the confidence to make decisions because they've got nothing to make decisions with.
No, they're waiting for some magical report that tells them something.
Yeah, or for some large amount of money to come into the bank.
But the question's always different. I think like the decision making itself, you can't really prepare for what that decision is going to be. So you need to have the real-time data because a quarterly report isn't going to do it for you. So, okay, so the second point then is highlight areas of risk and mitigate them with complete data health. Now, you said that great example about if you had one customer who was making up a proportionately much larger part of your revenue, think about how you deal with that. Like, are you going to bank on that? Are you going to hire another member of staff off the back of that? Or are you going to do something else?
Yeah. And you mentioned about supply. So, if you are buying goods that could be, have some taxes or duties or tariffs put on them, what happens if your costs go up by 20%? Because what we've got to look at is where we have control in our business and where we don't have control. Maybe it's your premises, maybe it's coming up to the end of your lease and it needs to be renegotiated. There's a risk there. And I just don't think bookkeepers think enough about like the future, like how they can bring this stuff up. As well, with anything that's touching the business that has a financial impact, the bookkeeper can mention.
So there are things that you can't control, like supplier changing its terms, a supplier going under. What are you going to do then if you can't access
the bank account taking
the overdraft being recalled? You've got to pay back your overdraft instantly. You haven't got a credit record. Like, what are you going to do in that situation? And so maybe it's things like having conversations with there are so many conversations that a bookkeeper can facilitate here. It might be about making an introduction to someone like Nexus who could help with like creating a credit facility and just having it there ready in case the client needs cash flow.
We were talking about this, about VAT funding, weren't we? Once you've gone through the cycle and set up, and we did this even though we didn't need it, but we wanted to see how the whole thing played out. Like, what does it mean to get VAT funding? How does it work? And once you've gone through the process, if we are now set up, I just paid our VAT bill before we came in here, so we didn't need it, but we wanted to try it out, and now we have that facility.
If we needed that cash flow in the future,
and it just gives you that we don't have to worry about it.
The other thing you could help your client. Obviously, cash flow forecasting is a good one, but like take control of very specific things like the billing cycle. If they're doing their payment, the moment a purchase invoice comes in, they're paying it. There's something you can do if you were to take control of that billing cycle and say, well, actually, do you know what? These suppliers don't have to be paid until 60 days. We'll make a plan for you with that.
And that's where a tool like Dext comes in. Because with the 99.9% accuracy, when they scan the documents and they're telling you what the date is, it's going into your accounting software, and you can organise by dates, and you can go and make a plan of action. But you're not having to manually enter when the due date is. You're making a plan with the knowledge that's already there.
The other thing I think is really crucial is the report mentioned, how many businesses are facing insolvency, and we had Chris Warden from Director First come in and do a really great session with the Bookkeepers Collective this week, and it was fab. And what he was saying from an insolvency practitioner point of view is, first of all, insolvency looks like lots of different things. There are different tests. Have you got like a CCJ against you, or have you on the balance sheet, have you got more liabilities and assets, or is it actually like a cash flow? You can't pay your suppliers right now. It's a cash flow issue. And he said, whether you're actually in an insolvency situation or not, having a conversation with someone could be helpful, because there might be an opportunity to restructure something. And just knowing your options. And this is what scenario planning is. Know the options, speak to people. I think people are so afraid. If it's looking bad, people have that tendency to bury their head in the sand.
I was just going to say, like the ostrich effect, the brown envelopes from HMRC are coming in. You're like, I can't pay with it. Whereas actually communication's key. If you pick up the phone and speak to them, you might be able to get a time to pay arrangement, or that they may have some options for you. I always used to say this with clients, that, just talk to me. I can make a plan. I'd much prefer to speak to someone and say, right, I'm sorry you're feeling like this. What can we do here? How can we help you? Because when you do that, you can plan.
Yeah.
You feel like, oh, I'm not in this dire situation anymore. Whereas if you don't open the envelopes, they're still there.
You don't even know where you are if you don't open it. It's like,
didn't we have? Oh my goodness! I remember Claire Johnson, one of our bookkeepers, and she told that story of how many brown envelopes did she open for her client, and she sorted everything out for him.
Yeah,
and he'd been really poorly, hadn't he? And she just received this bag full of them, and she could open them all up and deal with them. And I was like, oh my goodness! But
that's the underrated bookkeeper for you. Like no one shouts about the work that they do there.
No. She sorted him out, all his finances out, and got his cash flow back on track.
I think he was owed some money in the end.
He was owed money, yeah.
The third thing that's in this report here is, we should think about presenting clear visual reports and dashboards for our clients. So there are tools out there. If your client's using a spreadsheet right now, please help them to get rid of that, because there's going to be a much better way for them to see a visual. And I found so often with clients that if you gave them a spreadsheet or a list of data, it was just too overwhelming. If you gave them like a picture of what it looked like, a graph can be so much more helpful. And then, of course, you could scenario plan your cash flow. If we hire this person, or if this costs more money, what does the line do?
And Dext has this in their software where you can go and check the health of the bookkeeping, and then you can see, as a bookkeeper, you can go and see what needs to be done to improve. And that's a conversation you can have with the business, because it might be out of the bookkeeper's control. It might not be something to do with that they need to do, but it's like, this is looking, you need to have a conversation and make it, and you can be proactive rather than waiting for the brown envelope.
Yeah. And the final one, they're saying we should recommend budget reallocation based on current expenses. Now, I sat and had a little think about what this might mean, because budget reallocation, I think what we're talking about here is, rather than saying to the client, you should, make people redundant, cut your costs, actually look at the expenses, not just on a financial line by line basis, like how, this one is like, this is really expensive, but I actually think, like, how does that cost allow us to deliver something in business? I often say to us, this particular thing we sell generates 50% of our income. That means my time should be 50% on that particular thing. So just looking at like the ROI of, if you've got a member of staff, is that member of staff performing for you?
Or are they costing you? And that's the better way to look at it, rather than just think we need to cut costs. Think about what are you spending, and is there a return on investment on that, and tweak all of those, rather than just I think when we're scared, we do, it's just a human trait.
In like good old accounting training, we'd call this a profit center, where you would just like group that part of the business together, wouldn't you? And you'd say, well, that's worthwhile, that is not, and then deciding in that way instead.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you can get a copy of this report from Dext. We're going to share the details underneath this video. Go and take a look. It's really interesting reading. I think understanding the situation your clients are in right now helps you to speak to them, helps you to have real conversations. You could say, I've read this report. Lots of business owners are feeling like this. Let's talk about you. Let's talk about scenario planning for you for the next 12 months. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next episode of the Bookkeepers Podcast.